If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to have it shared here on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. The world wants to hear your cryptid and UFO experiences, so please reach out to me and let's get yours on the next episode of Uncomfortable. If you haven't yet, make sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And once you get a chance to listen to an episode or two, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you can. That alone is the one most important thing that you can do to help get this show out in front of more people. And with more people listening, that means more great experiences coming your way. If video is more your thing, then make sure to subscribe to Uncomfortable Podcast on YouTube, where you can get the video version of most shows. If that's where you listen to us, please make sure to click like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you are notified with each and every new release. Take a minute and check out the Uncomfortable link tree. It's the single best place you can find anything and everything uncomfortable all in one spot. The link for that is below down in the show notes. I've got a great guest lined up for you tonight. He started a life way over across the pond in Scotland, moved here in the U.S. as a teenager. Being an all-around outdoorsman, his skills as a tracker, survivalist, and many other things made him a natural for field research. All of these things aided in leading him to be one of the founding core members of the Olympic Project out in the Pacific Northwest. So, if you're ready, let's get into it. So if you will, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Mr. Shane Corson. Shane, welcome to Uncomfortable.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you for making this possible. Heard a lot of good things about you throughout quite a while. I've recognized your name for some time. As I said before we started recording, I had several people recently who were aware that I was going to be recording with you, and the likes of Mark Marcel for the Ape Canyon episode I did, Amy Boo, who's a wonderful soul, Todd Neese, everyone said to make sure to say hi to you, and so you come highly recommended.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate every single one of those individuals. They're great people and great at what they do.
I got to say, your name, a handful of documentaries, probably more than that. But one in particular that really stood out to me, and I don't know what it is about it. It's good. Obviously, that's why I like it. But the one stands out, Unwanted. I don't know what it is about that documentary. It's fantastic. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. So,
yeah, I've been in a few, and that was definitely one of the better ones. And good production with good supporting cast. Having some of my fellow Olympic Project members involved. Darcy Weir, the producer, he does a lot of great work both with the Sasquatch phenomenon and the UFO stuff.
Yeah, It's that is a name that gets a lot of recognition in those two topics for sure. The Olympic Project, man. I've got so many things I don't even know where to start. The nests have intrigued me for I think probably since the first time you guys made it aware. So I guess maybe a diving off point. Where do you want to go? How you got involved with? I know you had an experience, and I don't know if you want to lead with that or if you want to go into some of the research and stuff before you go into it. But I'm going to leave it up to you, sir.
Yeah, I'll start out with that because that specific experience, that specific encounter, solidified Sasquatch for me. That there was, something that they were real. Period. So I grew up in Scotland, very interested in Sasquatch. Lived on a little island off the west coast of Scotland called Islay, and I was interested in Loch Ness Monster and Sasquatch. And then around '93, had the chance to move to the States, moved to Southern California. And around '97 is really when I started kind of getting out and exploring, mostly California at that time, and mostly, Southern California all the way up to Yosemite. I spent a lot of time in Yosemite, backpacking, hiking, exploring. Eventually moved up to Oregon. I met my wife in California, moved up to Oregon where she's from, and was very excited about that because I knew I was in some really Sasquatchy areas and whole new land for me. So fast forward, moved up to Oregon in 2008, fast forward to 2011. Now, before that, I've been kind of doing some solo research. I didn't know anybody. I wasn't involved in any organizations. And so I had a couple of buddies that were avid fishermen like myself. I have a couple of passions in life, and fishing is one of them. And a lot of my investigations up to that point, I talked to a lot of interesting people, but I hadn't really come across anything significant or something I could say, oh, that was Sasquatch, whether it was in California or Oregon at that point. But I didn't, I was still kind of, 50-50. The Patterson-Gimlin film always blew my mind, and I thought, that's got to be a real Sasquatch. But, in the back of my head at that point, I still was like, I don't know. I can't say definitively that's a Sasquatch, but I was pretty confident it was. But I was still kind of 50-50 on the fence. And so I'd been working down in Oregon, and I had some coworkers, and we decided to go out to the Mount Hood Wilderness and hike into some kind of remote lakes, backpack in. And so we organized ourselves up, to my buddies and myself, and we drove out to this location and started hiking out to one of these lakes, an area we've never been to. At that, I was just strictly there to fish and hike. I wasn't really, I wasn't going to plan on doing anything Bigfoot related, was kind of in the back of my head. And so,
you say it was in the back of your head?
Yeah, I wasn't at the forefront, really honestly, I had nothing ever happened before. And so,
right.
Like I said, I talked to a lot of interesting witnesses, but, nothing that was so tangible to me that I could say, yeah, Sasquatch is real. And so, it was just one of those things where I wasn't doing Sasquatch related stuff full time. A lot of my stuff was fishing or hiking or hunting or exploring. And so, it wasn't, though I would call myself at that time, somewhat of a researcher. It wasn't at the forefront of everything I did like it is nowadays. And so, as we head out to this location, we hike into this lake, pretty remote little lake, and we set up our camp and leave the camp. We were going to be there 3 to 4 days. And so we set up our base camp, and we're going to go try and find another lake that was, it was a couple of miles away, but we ended up getting lost up on this ridge line above the lake we were camping in. And we got off trail, and we ended up hiking like 15 miles, just completely turned around, and eventually found the lake that we were looking for. But by that time, we were running out of daylight, so we decided to hit the trail that we were supposed to be on and head back to our base camp at this other lake. So we do that. We hike back and make plans the next day to go visit there's about 6 lakes up in this area, and we were going to hike to a completely different lake the next day. So we made plans to do that. We got our bearings, and on plan, I'm not getting lost again because we were knuckleheads. And so we get back to our camp, we cook a meal, we talk about our plans the next day, and we go to bed. And we had 3 separate tents. We were kind of in like a pyramid formation, and I had a buddy close to the lake, and he was kind of next to a bunch of skunk cabbage. I had another buddy that was to my right that was kind of up or just below this little hill, and I'm kind of at the point at the trail coming in. And so we go to bed about 11:30, and around 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear what sounds like, just didn't know what it was. It sounded like 2 rocks being smacked together. And this is this forest, and I've been there many times. It's like a lot of the Pacific Northwest forests. There's loads of animal. You got elk, bear, deer, all the usual critters, mountain lions, all that stuff. It's just dead quiet at night. You could hear a pin drop. And so I heard this clacking sound coming from a distance, but getting closer and closer and closer. And it was pretty methodical. Just, and I'm trying to rationalize in my head, what is this? Is it elk? Antlers? This is, August of 2011. I'm like, I don't think so. And my buddy Mitch, who was closest to the lake in his tent, he whispers over and goes, "Hey, do you hear that? Are you awake?" I said, yeah. And we're trying to figure out what it is. Well, whatever it was gets, 30 yards from our camp, maybe a little closer, and the clanking stops. And we start hearing movement. Something's walking around our camp, back and forth, breaking stuff. I assumed it was stepping on branches or something of that nature. And that lasted, a couple minutes. My other buddy, Ian, he's still asleep. He's snoring away. And then that clanking sound starts up again. Same kind of methodical, repetitious sound. And it gets further and further and further away, and it's gone. So eventually fall back asleep. And then the next morning we kind of talk about it. My buddy Mitch, Ian, he's not an outdoorsman. He's definitely afraid of bears. We had gotten lost earlier that day, we came across bear sign, bear scat and claw marks and stuff. And so I ended up giving him let him borrow a small handgun, which was a mistake, but just to calm his nerves and, take this in your tent, you'll be fine. No bear's going to come get you. And so the next morning we wake up, we talk about briefly, but whatever, I don't know. It was weird, but we end up hiking out to another lake that we had planned on visiting. We go out fishing, catch some landlocked cutthroat and some brook trout, catch our limit, head back to camp after a long day at this lake. Not getting lost, but made our way back. Beautiful day. And same MO. We get back to camp. We cook up the fish. We have our meal. We talk about our plans for the following day and pick out a new lake that we're going to go visit. We got it all mapped out. And same thing. Went to bed about 11 or so. And once again, around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear that sound again. And it's coming from a distance and it's getting closer. And my buddy Mitch is awake and he whispers, you awake? And I said, sure, yeah, I'm awake. And he said, it's back. I'm like, yeah, I hear it. And it's getting closer and again, stops a certain distance away from our camp. And then that movement, you hear something moving around. And I'm on my back listening. I'm assuming he's on his back. And we're just listening to this thing move back and forth. And he goes, I'm hearing something to my left. Well, at that time, I was hearing something to my right, kind of above the hill where my other buddy Ian was camped in his tent. And so I'm thinking, well, is there two of something out here? Well, as this thing's walking around or walking around breaking, I couldn't at the time, I want to say I could tell it was bipedal, but I really couldn't. It was, whatever it was, sounded large and just was moving around pretty erratically, breaking things. And even at that time, I couldn't tell if it was snapping stuff off of trees or just stepping on things. I assume it was stepping on things, lots of branches. And so that's going on. And then all the movement stops. And from up on the hill above where my buddy Ian was camped, just bam, 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 5 of the most powerful power knocks, whatever you want to call them, on this. Up there, there's nothing but Doug fir trees, basically big old growth Doug fir trees, and something is smacking the snot out of a tree, and you could hear it echo across the lake, and on the other side of the lake's a large rock scree. And it would just bounce back. I mean, and it would literally reverberate the ground. The substrate up there is very fibrous and lots of roots and stuff, so it's kind of hollow. So when this thing was smacking the tree, you could just feel it in your tent. Well,
no kidding.
This got my heart racing. My buddy Ian is now awake, going, kind of pretty paranoid. What's going on? What is that? Well, that knocking stops, and then I hear something from, again, above this general direction where this thing was beating the tree. At least that's what I assumed it was. I hear something through the trees, through the branches up above, and I could hear it coming from a distance, and then thud, right next to my buddy Mitch's tent, who's camped by the lake, and there's a little bit of mud there and skunk cabbage. Thud, and he whispers over. He said, "Something just threw a rock at us." I said, "I know that has to be a rock." So now I'm raced. My heart's pounding. I don't know what's going on. I've never experienced anything like this. I've been around loads of black bear, Yosemite to Oregon, you name it. I've been around black bear, elk, deer, all the usual suspects. And this is a remote location. There's no people out here. And somebody at 1:30 or 2 in the morning doing that, I don't know how they could hit a tree that hard to make it echo. But
yeah,
being a person wasn't even in my head at that. This was something abnormal and monstrous. So that rock comes in, and then I hear the movement again. And my buddy Ian is freaking out, and I'm thinking, oh man, I gave him that. It was a 9mm. I gave him a little handgun, and he's freaking out. And I said, calm down. You'll be fine. So I unzip my tent. I'm going to go grab this gun from him before he shoots somebody. Because like I said, it was a big mistake giving it to him. Something I regret, but I did it.
My guess is he didn't want to give it up, did he?
No, I mean, unfortunately, I never made it over to his tent because I unzip my tent. I'm looking around, and I'm praying to God, don't let me see anything. And I'm looking around and unzipping my tent, and almost directly in front of me, there's a really large Doug fir old growth tree, and I see movement. And what I see is, a hand, an arm, and a shoulder, and whatever this is on the front of this Doug fir tree. And every couple seconds, I see something swaying out from behind the tree. The arm's pretty still, but something swaying back and forth behind this tree. And I couldn't tell if it was looking at me or what, but it was huge. It was just huge. And I never, I could see fingers, I could see an arm, massive shoulder, and a head pop out every, few seconds, just back and forth. Well, I'm just staring at this thing, and I completely petrified, because I know I kind of know what I'm looking at, but I don't know what I'm looking at, because I've never seen a Sasquatch before. Never had an experience like this. And this thing drops its arm from the tree, and then it completely comes out from behind the tree. Now it's got its back to me, and it walks up this trail, the trail that we take to get to the other lakes, and disappears. And I just sat there for I don't know how long, waiting to see if something else was going to happen. Is it coming back? Everybody, Ian's quiet. Oh, excuse me, I just spilled my coffee.
Oh no.
Ian and Mitch are both very quiet. And so I sit there, and then I zip my tent up, and I just kind of sat there for a while, waiting for something to happen. I thought something's going to happen. And I was packing, and my buddy Mitch was packing a weapon.
You were expecting something to escalate?
Oh, absolutely. Because whatever this was came back 2 nights in a row, And so the second, this night, now I'm thinking it escalated, before I just heard what I assumed was rock clacking and it marching around. Well, now it's doing the same thing, but now it's hit a tree and thrown a rock. And so I thought we were going to die. Honestly, I thought we were going to get smashed and I didn't know if there was more than one. So pretty much sat there, and then I kind of laid back for a while listening, and never went back to sleep. I don't think any of us did. And daylight hits, and we collectively just packed up our stuff and got the heck out of there, with almost out saying a word.
Trip was over.
We were just out of our minds, pretty freaked out. We did not want to experience another day or night like that. And so we packed up our stuff and got out of there, even though we were supposed to be there another night or two. I mean, that was the plan, that was the goal, that was the agenda. And so we hike out our car and we start driving back, and pretty quiet the whole time. I never actually mentioned to them on the drive back that I saw something. I was trying to figure out in my head, how, why, all these questions. And so, again, long story short, I wanted to go back there months later, but at that time, I'll be honest, I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, and the two other guys that were with me didn't really want to go back. I started doing research, online research on this area, because I'm like, I wasn't doing anything Bigfoot related. I wasn't out there knocking or screaming on trees. We got lost, we chopped some firewood and stuff like that, but there was nothing I could say that I brought in that Sasquatch. But it did solidify to me that Sasquatch was real. I mean, that was 100%. I knew they're real now. I saw one. I got to experience things people talk about, banging on trees and throwing rocks.
So can I dive into what was obviously it was in the night, but what were the lighting conditions? I mean, did you have moonlight?
Yeah, we had moonlight. The key was, so my buddy Ian, I should have mentioned this earlier, my buddy Ian would build a ginormous, obnoxious fire every night because he thought it would keep the bears away. And so that fire was kind of in between what I saw in my tent. So there was a good amount of firewood he put on there. And so it's still glowing pretty good and crackling and stuff. And we had some moonlight. I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe it was a waxen gibbous or something like that. But I mean, there was enough moonlight coming through the tree line. But the fire is what really lit up the area, and we'd yell at them every night. You're going to burn this place down. It's August. It's pretty dry out here. I mean, most of you got a lot of pine needles and branches on the ground, and so we had to do some clearing to make him feel better and get his big fire going.
What do you recall, like detail wise, of what you saw?
Hairy, very large. I can make out hair. I want to say it was, that's the one thing I can't definitively say. It was either a dark brown or a black, or maybe even a dark cinnamon colored. It was hard to say, but I could see hair.
Hair versus fur?
Yeah, it was definitely looked like hair. Yeah, more like kind of longer hair. I wouldn't say more than, inch and a half. But you could definitely see that. And I would definitely call it hair. It didn't look like... I couldn't tell if there was a sheen to it or anything. It wasn't that great a detailed sighting. I couldn't make out really any facial features or anything. Just a large. The only thing I clearly saw were the fingers, which were just massive. It looked like a baseball glove on a tree, and then a really thick arm, and a large shoulder and a head. I couldn't tell if it had a crest on or not. Just looked like a large head swinging back and forth behind that dug fur.
Anything with the eyes. So often you hear, glowing eyes, yellow, red. Anything remarkable about?
No. I mean, they weren't glowing or anything like that. It was just, big eyes. I mean, big dark eyes. But they weren't glowing or bioluminescing or anything like that. They just looked like big ass eyes.
So it's such a strange thing because, I've talked to so many people and there's people that I firmly believe they're telling you their truth, but they'll swear up and down that those eyes are almost emitting its own low level of light. And then you talk to others and there's no indication of that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't really wrap my head around that one because, I mean, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of witnesses, and the vast majority of them don't talk about anything, glowing eyes or anything of that nature. reflective eye shine. Sure. I've heard that quite a few times. I don't know what to make of it. You know, I've never experienced anything like that. And that's the only Sasquatch I've seen, eye to eye, or, you know, face to face, other than I'm pretty dang sure I've seen Sasquatch through a thermal heat imager camera, twice now. I'm almost positive. But just that's the only sighting I've had, and that was 2011. I think I've come close, but yeah, I don't know what to make of that. You know, I don't know too many, personally, I don't know too many people that claim to have seen that, but I do know a few. And so, it's just one of those things where maybe they do and maybe they don't, and how they do it, I don't know. I mean, obviously they got large eyes and, you know, cones that can collect a lot of light compared to our eyes. And obviously they're very good at nighttime. They're very nocturnal.
Well, yeah. But it just doesn't make any sense. If there was an internal illumination by rights with the physiology of an eye, it would seem that would defeat their vision at night.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, I'll be honest, because I don't think there's enough evidence to showcase that yet. Not this, but it defies logic in a lot of ways. I mean, for an animal that, you know, probably, I mean, obviously it's the hide and seek champion, right? That would be a dead giveaway, for if it's a predator, and also just hiding purposes. So I don't know what to make of that. You know, I mean, the few that have come across my way, I've showcased that there was light already present, or it wasn't a Sasquatch. But like I said, I know a few people that claim to have seen that are pretty credible. So,
well, it sounds like you've probably interviewed way more experiencers than I have. And I guess while we're on the topic of the eyes, how often do you run into people relating some kind of paranormal, let's call it, experience associated with it?
Again, not often. Not often. There have been a few, but not very often. I mean, I did podcasting for years, 2012 through. I mean, I still occasionally do it on my podcast, Monster X Radio, and then all the conferences and symposiums, all the people I've bumped into, everybody that reached out to me, 99.9% of them, it's pretty natural. It's what I expect. And then you get that small percentage that claims something paranormal or something to it. The one issue I do have with that is I've known people that go out to the woods looking for Sasquatch, and something will happen, and they just automatically assume it's Sasquatch related. And there's a lot of weird things in the woods. Don't get me wrong, a lot of weird stuff. But you know, why
being in the woods in the dark is scary.
It can be. It can be. You know, I used to fear the woods, and now I thrive in it. You know, I don't. You know, I got a lot going for me there, mainly experience. But I've never, personally, I've never come across anything that I could say was paranormal. The one time I thought I saw an orb, you know, and it was midnight. I was with a small group, and we saw this blue thing glowing in the woods, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hear people talk about these orbs. There's one there, but instead of just talking about it, I hiked in a good 100 yards, 150 yards down this hill, and found out what it was. It was a firefox mushroom. I didn't know we had them in the Olympics, and it was glowing blue, bioluminescent blue, but it looked like an orb.
Really?
It looked like an orb floating in the sky. So, in a mushroom. But I've known people that go out there and they see weird stuff, but they already have Bigfoot on the brain, so they just associate it with Sasquatch, whether it's a dark shadow or certain sounds, or you name it, orbs. I mean, why not associate an orb with a bear or an elk? Why has it got to be Sasquatch? I don't understand that thought process. But if you're going in the woods looking for something and something happens, and you're probably going to tie loose ends together and make it work.
So you have this experience, and I assume that it is somewhat life-changing. I just talked with Todd Neese about a month ago, maybe. We've had conversations since, but he talks about his sighting, broad daylight, 20 to 25 seconds max, seeing these three individuals around a rock quarry, and changes his life, changes the trajectory of what he does for the next 30 plus years. Kind of the same thing with you?
100%. I know Todd Neese really well, and we kind of took similar paths. After that encounter, I started doing research on that general area, and lo and behold, I was in a well-known Sasquatch area. Most of the things I found were not on Bigfoot forums or BFRO or anything like that. It was hiking forums, camping forums, hunting forums, where these people would mention that particular area and things they had happened to them. There's a crazy bear up in this mountain throwing rocks at us, or we got chased out by a Sasquatch fish in that lake, and I had no idea. And so it started, up until that point, I called myself an investigator researcher, but now I was like, man, you weren't doing anything to that Sasquatch found you guys. It was nothing on my end other than maybe getting lost and going through its home territory or something. Is the only thing I could come up with. We walked through its house, and it's like, no, you guys can't be here. Time to go. But so I started getting. I used to think back then. I can go back to this area. I know where Sasquatch is at. I'll figure this out. I'll prove it. And I went back there and back there and back there and back there. And I didn't have anything happen. Nothing. Maybe one knock in all the nights and weeks and months I'd spent out there, but nothing after that. So years later, I did have a few things happen, but the amount of time I spent there, I got pretty frustrated because I was like, "What?" So I decided, hey, you can't do this by yourself. You need to contact people that know these areas. And so I got a hold of a BFRO guy and brought him out there, and again, didn't really have anything happen. He brought his parabolic dish and recorded some possible knocks, percussive sounds, and that was that. And then I eventually met Cliff Barrickman. Shortly thereafter, went to one of his speaking engagements, got to know him, became friends with him. And then, which led me to another speaking engagement. It was called Hop Squatch. And a guy by the name of Guy Edwards used to run this down in Portland, Oregon, this Bigfoot hangout, Bigfoot and Brews sort of thing. And I met Derek.
that was the name of my event, Bigfoot and Brews.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go. It's a good name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I met Derek Randalls, who was the original co-founder of the Olympic Project, and invited me up to one of his expeditions up in the Olympics. And so I told him all about my experience, my encounter. He told me about his. He told me about the Olympic Project and its research. And shortly thereafter, we just really hit it off. I mean, he's my best friend now, but back then, we just really hit it off. And he's an avid hunter, guide, explorer. He's been involved with Sasquatch. He had this encounter in 1985. And we really hit it off, and he asked me to join the Olympic Project. And so I've been running with that full steam. But having Sasquatch solidified for me, I don't know if I don't think I'd be where I am today without having that sighting. If it was just something walking around, possibly clacking rocks, I would get excited a little bit, but I didn't see it. I can't say that was a Sasquatch. But after seeing a Sasquatch, it literally, I lived in Oregon at the time, and because of the Olympic Project and some other stuff, I moved to Washington State because of Sasquatch. I mean, I've literally shaped my life around this phenomena. I tell people it's about as close to a job without getting paid as one, but a job I love, a hobby I love, but I do it every single day. I'm doing something Sasquatch related to online research. I'm hitting the woods. I'm, whatever have you. But it has shaped my life. And, you have certain people in this world that, have an encounter and they shut up about it. They don't tell anybody. You have some that are intrigued, don't do anything about it. You have others that don't admit it. And then you have certain people like myself that, like Todd Neese, that we want to know more. We want to know more. We know these things exist. how do they survive, thrive? Where do they go? How do they avoid people? What do they eat? All those questions. Do they travel in family groups? Are they solo? And so that was my direction from there on out, is I wanted to know more. I wanted to capture audio of them. I wanted to get them on camera. I wanted to get another visual. I want to learn as much as I could. And so, yeah, it really has shaped my life in a really good way. I met a lot of great people.
So it's been a positive.
Very positive. I'm not, never really had anything negative. A few people in the world, right, that we were talking about before the show, a few bad eggs. But I mean, the majority of people that I call friends or work with, that I associate myself with, that I talk to, they're just fantastic. And they're good at what they do. So
going back to some of the things that you just rattled off, as far as, wanting to know more, getting vocalizations, what are they? Where are they? What do they do? With your involvement with the Olympic project, have you been able to answer any of those questions?
I don't like to say anything is absolute, because I don't have a Sasquatch in my back pocket. But I think we've come to some pretty, I won't say conclusions, but some unique hypotheses and ideas. The one thing I loved about, joining the Olympic project was, up until I joined the Olympic project, I thought I was doing research, and when I joined the Olympic project, I pretty much realized I was doing a lot of stuff wrong. I wasn't collecting data. I wasn't, I'd jot down people's encounters and stories, but I wasn't looking at the meat in there to see if there was any patterns of predictability. And the Olympic project is really just that. It's a data-driven collection organization. And so with over the years of working with the Olympic project and other investigators, researchers, enthusiasts outside the Olympic project, compiling all these data into like spreadsheets and stuff, we're starting to see, I think, some patterns of somewhat predictability in some areas. Like the Nest area, for example, we've been working that area since about the tail end of 2015. And, and then, the Olympics in general. I mean, I can tell you roughly with a lot of confidence, in May where you want to be at, what level, right, a mountain you want to be, and it's got a lot to do with elk. But there's certain patterns, like the audio stuff. We've been recording audio. We've had a couple of audio projects and we're not ambulance chasers. We have a couple of core areas, Oregon and Washington, the Olympics in southwestern Washington. And we just stick to those areas. We get to know every animal in that area, the noises they make. And we place like SM4 units, which is a professional bioacoustical audio recorder. Biologists use them. They're about $800 to $900. We have 4 of them. And we record literally in some of these areas every single night from, say 5 p.m. till 7 a.m. And we take all those recordings. I mean, we're recording every single night. So we're not just listening to it though. What we do is we throw that audio onto like a spectrogram, like Audacity, and we'll throw it on there and we'll visually look at stuff. And we jot down, we don't do that so much anymore. For over a year and a half, a buddy of mine, Chris Spencer, who's part of the Olympic project, he was really the one vetting this audio, and he would mark down every single animal. Okay, that's a coyote, the time, the hour, the month, the date, the weather. Okay, that's a bear. Oh, okay, there's 2 bobcats fighting over here. Oh, you name it. Every single animal and every percussive or oddity that wasn't like a tree popping or something of that nature. And then we have the unusual stuff or the suspect stuff that might be the target species, the target subject, which we put in over here. We're not saying it's Sasquatch, but we visually look at that, compare everything. So we can tell you, okay, that's a coyote. So we can visually compare that to other coyotes using, like Macaulay Library of Sound. They have spectrograms in there, spectrograph
right.
You can compare stuff to. And then we have our own library. So we document every single animal. And
it's like audio DNA.
Exactly. Everything's got a fingerprint, right? Everything's got a signature, a visual signature. You and I do, animals do. And we've over the years recorded, I think, some amazing audio that even your most skeptic person would go, well, that sounds like chimpanzees, or that sounds like a gorilla, or that sounds like nothing I've ever heard before. That's a clear whoop. That's something hitting a tree and then whooping, or something throwing a rock, or something pant hooting. We got some amazing audio. And so that's just one of the facets beside the tracks we've casted over the years, whether it's hand impressions or foot impressions, whether it's the hair we've discovered in some of these nests. We are starting to get what I call, possible patterns, possible predictability of Sasquatch, I believe. I can't say that definitively, and I never will. Like I said, I don't have a Sasquatch in my back pocket. I have been doing this for many years, so I have a lot of experience. Doesn't make me right, doesn't make me wrong. But combined with everything the Olympic Project's doing, I think we're getting a lot of the puzzle pieces put into place, and it's starting to paint and formulate a broad picture for us that matches other organizations that we talk and collaborate with, and other individuals. And so it's a collective effort, but it keeps me going, because you just never know what you're going to discover, or what's around the corner, or what piece someone will bring to the table that go, oh, that fits here. Oh, there you go.
Right. Let me take you back to the audio real quick, because funny enough, tomorrow evening, I'm recording with Ron Moorhead and Scott Nelson. Everybody knows the story of the Sierra Sounds. It's not going to be a show about that as much as it's going to be about the friendship that developed because of the interaction, and how it's changed each one of their perspectives prior to knowing anything about it. But related to the Sierra Sounds, are your audio captures anywhere in the ballpark sound wise? Any similarities to the things that Moorhead's recordings show?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Ron. He used to live up in Sequim, Washington, not too far from me. And he used to come up to our Olympic Project property. And one day we were all hanging out. We'd have a big weekend where everybody would just camp and hang out. And Ron was up there with his wife up there, Carrie. And we were playing one of our sounds. And Ron thought it was his recording from Sierra. Okay. And it was ours. Now, we have, I would say, two different recordings from the same area. They're not as lengthy, and they sound a little bit different, but they're similar to what Ron Moorhead recording. And like I said before, Ron listened to a part of one, and he thought it was his. We were playing his Sierra Sounds, and it wasn't. It was one of ours from one of our areas. So we have a few. Not, I think that there's just not that many out there like that. That's a very rare occurrence, but I've heard a few other investigators, researchers that have some similar stuff to Ron's in completely different states.
There's a gentleman that I never I got it. The gentleman that recorded it okayed this other gentleman to share it with me, but he did not give me permission to air it or use it in any way other than to just listen to it. And the research area was in the area of Yankee Springs, south of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And when I listened to that was every bit as impressive as Moorhead's, what Moorhead has released. It was different, but a lot of similarities. Some of it probably a little bit clearer, meaning that the subjects sounded like they were closer to the microphone. And my guess is, 20 or so years better technology as far as the recording device, but remarkably similar. And that's not even, that's in the lower half of the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
I wish because I still have the files. I wish to God that guy would release. I'm not even looking for myself to be able to release it, even though that would be fantastic. But for him to release it, because the similarities astounding.
Yeah, I know Ron Moorhead. He's always looking for other individuals that have similar recordings, and yeah, it's a shame, because if you could put that in, someone like Scott Nelson's hands and let him work his magic, that'd be amazing.
So throughout your work with the Olympic project, you kind of answered one of the points that I was going to bring up, as far as, and before I say that, I'm not going to take the road and say that I think every level of interest in this topic has its value. Whether it's somebody like me who talks to people who have had experiences and gets it out for others to hear, the weekend warrior who straps a GoPro to his chest and walks around in a metro park and finds what look like structures, teepees, weird glyphs, or stacking of rocks and stuff like that. All the way up to people who have dedicated their day-to-day to doing what you're doing and your group. I think it all has value. But by and large, your Olympic project is a very organized, it's a very organized system. You're recording data sets, you're logging, you're tracking things, you're pulling together patterns. Do the people who are out there without the expansive knowledge and equipment that you guys have, are they hurting the situation? Are they hurting because they're not recording things? They're not. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, even though I think it all has value, if you're out there and you're not doing if everybody's not on the same page, then it seems kind of like maybe you're butting heads a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's hurting anything. I mean, I don't. They're not necessarily helping, but I don't think it's really hurting. And there is quite a few organizations, I think, and a lot of individuals starting to look into more being a citizen scientist and collect that stuff. I see a growing trend over the years, but everybody has their place. Some people look at this more of a hobby. Some people take it really serious. Some people kind of mediocre. I don't think anybody's really hurting too much. I mean, it'd be great if everybody was on the same page, but I know for a fact that'll never happen. There's too many factions, too many opinions, and I like to just keep it. What does Thomas Steenberger always say? Stick to the facts and don't deviate from the facts. But I'm very optimistic about the future. I mean, like I said, the Olympic project hasn't proven anything yet, at least to the public.
Right.
I think we got a lot in our portfolio for sure. So everybody's kind of on an equal playing field. I don't care what side of the spectrum you come. Everybody's kind of on an equal playing field. But what I love really, and I know Amy Boo, is that I've seen interest from academia and academics that not necessarily are public. Some of them are. Your Jeff Meldrums and your
sure,
and whatnot, and individuals like John Binnernagel before he passed away. They put their neck on the lines, but there's a lot of academic individuals from all sciences that are very interested in the Sasquatch phenomena, and they're interested in what the Olympic project's doing. They're interested in what the NAAC's doing, NOAC, out there in Oklahoma and Texas and whatnot. People that are documenting stuff because there's something tangible. They can look at our data sets. They can, they're not just listening to a story or an encounter. There is something physical, and they can dissect it. And so, I mean, if more people got on that sort of page, I think it'd be better as a whole. But it would definitely help. But the fact that we have all this, a lot of academia, a lot of academics, that I call it the Bigfoot closet, right? They're not ready to step out yet. They're kind of in the background, but
Yeah.
They're interested, and they're giving input and insight to laymen such as myself, and they're interested, and they find a lot of this stuff very promising, and they don't just show up and leave. They're around for a while because there's something to this to them. There's got to be.
Yeah.
It can't be just a bunch of people hallucinating or having a mass hysteria, or people are seeing things.
Agreed.
People are finding things. It's not just people seeing things. People are smelling things. I mean, you name it. It's across the gamut with experiences, but there's a lot of tangible stuff out there. So, maybe that person that's just walking around with a GoPro, maybe they'll get the best film since Patterson Gimlin. So they have a place.
So going back to something you said earlier, that you collaborate with some other groups. I have to imagine that given the state of this community, that you've got to be pretty trustworthy to be able to be in a relationship where you have groups that are sharing information. Are you finding that the groups that you're working with, are they as transparent as you? Or do you think that there's some holdback? We'll work with you, but there's some level of information that they're holding because you follow what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. Usually when you run into that, it's usually what's the number one thing people hide is their location, where they're going, right? We get a little bit of that. There's two specific groups we work with, one in Oregon, one in Washington, or I guess they work both areas. Very trustworthy. I think the key is to walk into this without an ego. If you come in with an ego and you're Mr. Know-It-All or Mrs. Know-It-All, there's problems right off the bat. If you come in, you may have some wonderful evidence, and maybe you found it solely, but it doesn't necessarily make you the number one, top dog, best researcher. And it doesn't do any good if you just sit on it. And so that's where the collaboration comes into. And, I can say the Limit Project is one of the longest running groups out there. And there's because we're all like-minded. We get along. We have fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously. But we also don't come in with egos. Everybody's on an equal playing field. They all have their roles, their jobs. We have fun at it. And that's the groups we like to work with, and most of them are very transparent, and some of them are working on amazing things, so as long as you don't come in with an ego, you don't come in, money can be an issue sometimes with some, you have more equipment and stuff, but if you can spread the wealth if you trust people enough, and because you're all in it for the same goals, the same reasons, and you can come to that level playing field and meet each other that way and work together. And it's only going to benefit not just the groups involved, but the Sasquatch subject in general. And so, there's a few groups that, and individuals, they don't want their areas divulged. And I'm sure we don't need to know the area, just, what kind of data you got. We've been very fortunate to work with some amazing groups that whether we have approached them or they have approached us. Certain individuals are solo runners that are under the radar. You'll never hear about. Love those guys and females. Because they're really not interested in the limelight or the publicity or the fame. Like you're going to be famous doing Bigfoot. It's the silliest thing ever.
Well, some do.
I mean, you could, but then you could go down that road. Sure, you can get your 15 minutes of fame being on a show or go talk at a conference, but that's fleeting. It eventually fades away, and people lose interest, and then you have nothing to show about it. You're just talking about the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
Get on that circuit, and again, Boyd, stuff like that, like the plague. I do speak in engagements, but I enjoy talking Sasquatch. I never asked to speak anywhere. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, pretty much. So throughout the collaborations, and throughout all of your interviews with people, have you ever come across any indication that would suggest that they possibly use fire?
No, I have not. I've been asked that question before. I think again, if they're capable of using fire, they're going to give themselves up. They're going to be found. I just don't see the purpose. I think they have a niche in the environment. They have a niche in this ecosystem. There's a spot for them, and they are completely natural to their environment. That I personally don't think they could build fire. I don't see the need for one. I often say if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, acts like a duck, it's a duck. And everything that all the people I've interviewed over the years, everything I've experienced, everything that those around me, whether it's the Olympic project, have experienced, is purely just no evidence of fire building or much stone or tool use. Now, one could argue, a rock, clanking it together or throwing it, that's a tool, right? Using a limb to beat something. I mean, I guess you could classify as tool use, but I don't think they're out there sharpening flint. Never seen any evidence of that. And then I think, like I said, they're building fire. You're going to find a lot of these. I think you'd find a lot more. Hey, maybe that's why, you're getting all these wildfires now, I mean, it's crazy, but I just, I think smoke in the air, it's just a dead giveaway. And so, but
that's a good point.
I'm pretty sure they're interested in fires in general, though, especially ones that are out. We've had occasion up in an area in Rainier where another researcher friend of ours was out camping with a group, and she's got this all recorded. It's really good audio. And this was after a sighting in that area too. And then one of the best tracks I found ever was in this area. But something was going through and this is like 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, just starting to get a little bit of daylight. And something's going through this fire pit that's up on this hill above her. And it's picking out the charcoal and stuff and tossing it at her tent. And so and I'm pretty sure it was a Sasquatch, but throwing stuff too, pine cones and little bits of wood and then some of the rock that had come apart. So they definitely mess with fires. I don't know if they mess with lit fires, but definitely fire rings.
What's your take on them? What do you think they are?
Hardest question that one could be asked, right? Yeah, it's the hardest question. I really try not to put Sasquatch in a box per se. Nobody puts Sasquatch in a box, but I do lean towards a sort of primate. Where that falls, I don't know, but there's just too much evidence that I think I've seen, and it points in that direction that it's a sort of primate. Now, people get offended by that, but we're all primates.
Right.
Where in that does it fit? I don't know, but I mean, it has all the features. Apparently, it in a lot of ways. In some ways, it acts, based on witness reports, based on some of the stuff we've collected over years. It's got this almost human component to it, but then it's got also this very non-human primate component to it. Whether it's recordings and vocals, whether it's possibly making nests. Even the hair that's been visually looked at is primate hair. I mean, it's some sort of primate, but what, I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's where I lean, because that's just where everything's pointing for me. And the Olympic project said it's some sort of primate, and that's kind of where I leave it. I don't know if it's a Gigantopithecus black sea, or I often think that it could be something similar, but it's just something obviously so unique, but I don't think it's been found in the fossil record yet. And I don't think that's even amazing. If people get, we haven't found fossils. Well, why is that? We're finding new species every single day that are not, never been found before, that here, we got to fit this in over here, or that changes this. So it doesn't even blow my mind. That's just where, the evidence and the experiences and are pointing to right now.
Seeing the nests, undeniably gorilla-like, undeniably, right?
Oh,
I mean, just
100%.
But like my psyche likens them to being more like us than just a wild animal.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the influence of pop culture on me. I pay attention to a lot of the Native American First Nations record of them. It seems to me like they're more towards our end of the primate than towards the mountain gorilla. The size differential is puzzling to me. If they were a little more relatively, a little bit bigger than regular gorillas and maybe just a little bit taller than us, that would make sense. But, this, and again, maybe it's pop culture affects a lot of people, but the 7 to 8 foot tall, reports, it's like, God damn, that's big. That's a lot of body, man.
Yeah. Really, truly is.
As far as the nests are concerned, do you find any evidence since then of additional nests? I would assume that having found that area and spent as much time as you guys did there, investigating and deconstructing the nest and all the work that went into that, I would assume that they would have moved on to somewhere else. Have you guys come across any other areas that you're finding the same type of stuff?
No, just this area as far as nests are concerned. Now, these nests were found in May of 2015, and they were found originally by a timber surveyor. He was out marking a line, and so we didn't find the original. We were led there after the fact, and when I got to view them, that's why I moved up to Washington. I was blown away, absolutely blown away. This area, so we do believe these nests, when they're being made in the months of like late February to mid-March. Not every year. We believe they're being made every 4 to 5 years. We have found some what we believe are some older nests. I mean, these nests now, there's nothing to look at. They're gone. I mean, nature took over,
right.
Tree fall. There was so much work done on the original nest area, the nests themselves, with whatever made them, that it defied logic to me and to many people that they were made for, like a gorilla, for like a one-night thing. Gorillas make nests and they move on. They don't come back. Whoever made these nests, multiple nests, and to date we have found 24, and I'll tell you about the 24th one. But these nests were made, I believe, for a short period of time. It could have been a couple of days, could have been a week, and probably for a specific purpose. And so we spent months searching this and gridding this whole area, and we found at that time 23, including in that number 2, what we call practice nests that were built into the huckleberry. They were a mirror image of what was on the ground, but off the ground, almost like a gorilla would teach its young, or a practice nest. So that was 23. In 2020, in the general vicinity of this area, a different ravine, a different plateau, a different ridgeline, but in the same general area, late February, I think it was the 29th of February, 2020, my buddy Todd Hale and I walked in on something making one of these nests. We've been searching for years for nests in other areas, adjacent areas, but we were of the opinion that they were being made every 4 to 5 years, and the end of February, March. And so we actually walked in on something making one of these nests. We didn't get eyes on it. It managed to go down this ravine and circle up behind us, and then eventually, I'm assuming it took off. We never got eyes on it. But when we went into where we originally heard this thing, the devastation, it was a mirror image of what was discovered back in 2015. All the huckleberry was broken off from 9 feet off the ground to a foot off the ground. Huge pile of huckleberry starting to be formulated into a large ground nest. 14-inch impressions, handprints, and hair. And what was really cool, I'll keep this kind of short, but when we discovered this new nest, my buddy Todd and Hale and I and Derek Randalls of the Olympic Project, who we brought out there eventually, we had made the conscious decision not to touch anything. We were going to bring in experts, outside of Bigfoot. We did call
forensics.
Yeah, we did call Dr. Meldrum up, Jeff, because he's a good friend of ours, and he's been to the nest area before. And we were going to fly him out like immediately, and we were going to get a hold of biologists and people come in there and collect, document. Well, the first case of COVID happened in February, and it was in Washington, and so everything got shut down. People didn't want to fly. It was pretty pandemonium. And we had some weather moving in, so we couldn't get anybody to come out. So we decided to collect as much as we could. And I brought Cliff Berrickman out, a good friend of ours, and he's got a lot of hydrocal to help cast this stuff. Well, as Cliff and I are collecting we were collecting all the debris, all the huckleberry that was in this pile being made into a nest. And as we were collecting it and we're lifting it up, there's 2 14-inch size impressions underneath the huckleberry. And it just blew my mind because you never would have seen these impressions unless you moved the huckleberry, the pile. And it was a right foot and a right foot, like it stepped. And then you look up above where the nest was, and there's breaks. So it was collecting and bringing down and setting this nest up. So that still blows my mind. And so that was 2020. We're now in 2025. So we're getting into the tail end of February and March when we think this might be a year, possibly, not in necessarily the same fingers or the same ridge line but this area is vast. We could maybe find more nests this year. We're hoping so. We're going to spend weeks and weeks and weeks exploring this area and see if we come across more nests. And if we do, that's the approach we're going to take. We're just going to look. We're not going to touch. We're going to bring in the experts because, I'm not a scientist. I'm very good at collecting stuff, and I know how to do the scientific method and document stuff. We've done this before, but I want to bring in a fresh set of eyes. I want some of these other, and we brought anthropologists or primatologists out here. We brought zookeepers out here that work directly with bonobos and gorillas and chimpanzees, and they were blown away by these nests. They're like, these nests have character to them. This reminds me of so-and-so at my zoo that would build this. And bear biologists are like, no, it's not bear behavior. And so they're all floored, but they have no answers. So we need to ideally we'd find something really fresh. Ideally, we'd actually get something on film making one of these things. We were close. Todd Hale and I were so close because we heard the breaks. Something was breaking stuff, and very large, and we got close. But it managed, I think, and I'm just assuming that it did not think we were going to walk directly towards it. It's a big area. We could have taken multiple routes, and we went to this one area and literally struck gold. And when it didn't spook us, it decided to vacate the area. And so we had our GoPro running and all that. I mean, we were very close. I thought for sure I was going to see this thing peeking out behind all this huckleberry, but it's very, very thick and nasty area. It doesn't take much to disappear. You can walk in and ride up on a bear easily in some of these areas and not even know it's there. But yeah, so in the future, that's our goal. Find newer nests or, even older ones. Everything's got DNA and evidence in there. So that's kind of our angle right now in this area. And then documenting, with the audio. I mean, audio is what we have out there right now. And we try to kind of leave the area alone for large spells of time. Because the audio can do the work for us. It's the least and most non-intrusive thing you can do. Right. Audio out there. And we go in there and collect it. And we'll be collecting that shortly to vets and see, okay, is there anything going on out here? We should have something possibly. So that's going to be a next week or so. We're going to go in there and collect that, and then make plans to go in there and spend a lot of time off trail hiking and exploring. And who knows? I'm excited about this year.
Mm. Okay, so with the amount of data, with the evidence that you've collected through the Olympic project. Castings. Do the castings seem to represent well what most find to be the most credible as far as tracks? Meldrum has a very specific criteria for what he considers to be compelling and real. Some say that the the narrowing of the heel is an indication that it's, probably more human. The wider the breadth of the middle of the foot, lack of an arch, a more flat-footed stomp seems to be more widely accepted as being real. There's some that have 3 toes, in certain parts of the country that, I mean, are yours, what you guys are finding there, are you consistently finding things that all look like, one of these things is not like the other, like the old kids song? Are they all making sense? Do they line up with what's considered to be real?
Yeah, I would say 100%. In fact, Dr. Meldrum was out in this area, and we actually found a track together, and he was pretty impressed. But yeah, absolutely. We don't find tracks all the time. It's very hard to, I think in general, find tracks or impressions. It's very hard. And we absolutely.
Well, conditions have to be right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
and where these things are traversing through some of this really thick huckleberry, you literally have to stumble across it, and have the right scenario where, you can get that impression. But, over the years, consistently we've been finding these 14-inch tracks and smaller ones and a 16-inch track as well. And what's fascinating about that is, some distance away, but not extremely far away, there's been 2 different log haulers, the guys that park at the gate, drive in, grab the logs on their, get them loaded up on their trucks, and they get out and drop them off at the, these plants and stuff. So 2 different individuals, and this was back in 2017, didn't know each other, but within a span of a month of either one of them being at this gate, they both described seeing 2 larger Sasquatch and 2 smaller ones, almost like a family unit. And in this area where they saw these individuals, it's not too far away from this nest area. And if you look at with the tracks, like for example, the 14-inch tracks are very interesting to me because they're being found in these nesting areas. And if you look at Patty, she was a size 14. So that points to maybe a female, right? Well,
and a full-grown adult female.
Yeah, full-grown adult female. And we're finding these 14-inch tracks. And I compare it to Patty for a lot of reasons, because a lot of people, get back to nests real quick. There was I didn't know anything about nests. I didn't know anything that Sasquatch was even capable, or there was even a thing. And then, subsequently having observed these nests, I started doing research on nests, Bigfoot. Does anybody else see or find anything like this? And yeah, sure enough, lo and behold, there's been other nests found throughout the country: Oregon, California, Washington, Alaska, Canada, Montana, Idaho, and they're almost always found by timber company employees because they got a job to do in these nasty remote areas. These aren't areas typically you'd go to hunt, you go to hike in or explore. They're thick, they're nasty, and in a lot of cases dangerous. And in 1967, a timber employee named Lyle Laverty, Daniel Perez of Bigfoot Times interviewed this guy on his YouTube channel, and Lyle Laverty found a nest in 1967 above Scorpion Creek. Well, Scorpion Creek feeds into Bluff Creek. And so he described it just like the ones we were led to discover and check out. And I thought it was fascinating because we're finding 14-inch tracks in this area. We have a nest, and then Patty, size 14. And apparently there was a nest literally a stone's throw away from where they filmed her in that area in 1967.
Interesting.
And they're being found by there have been a few found by average people, not timber company employees, surveyors, not, but the vast majority of them are found. And they're also being found in the same sort of scenarios: western-facing slopes, above usually a creek or a seasonal salmon-bearing creek or river, and at the tips of these fingers. You got these ridge lines and you got these fingers coming off. Well, all the nests are being found at the very end of these fingers, and that seems to be across the board pretty typical. And so there's a lot of, again, patterns, possible predictability. And so, that all falls in line with, this evidence collection and, the tracks. And, even to date, we found 4 hand impressions, 2.5 in 2020 in the nest, the new nest area we found. And then my buddy Chris Spencer and I found one a couple of months ago in a different area. And every hand other than the left and right that we originally discovered that are from the same individual, all the other ones are of different sizes, and pretty profound. I mean, the cast came out really great. And so we are seeing consistency, and we're also seeing that it falls in line with what other individuals are finding. It falls in line with what science would call interesting, whether it's, your Dr. Meldrum's or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
What kind of shape are you getting out of the hands? Is it more human? Is it more ape-like?
I would say in between. So what we notice is, it's got a lower set thumb. So it's not if you imagine like a baseball glove, much bigger, but the thumb seems to be just a little bit lower set, and almost primate-like, but not quite. But the fingers are very similar to humans.
Yeah,
that's based on what we're casting. So, and then comparing those to other hand impressions found throughout the country, I mean, it's very similar to what other people are finding. And I think that's fascinating that there is similarities, which there should be.
Yeah. What kind of size are you getting on the hands?
So when you cast this stuff, so we have a 2-method process now that we just started doing, I should say, where before we cast an impression, we'll go and use like a 3D app on our phones and make a 3D image of
scan of
it, exactly, using like Scaniverse or one of those apps. So we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the hands look larger than they are because of the casting material, right? But they're anywhere from about 16 inches. I mean, they're big. They're bigger than a baseball glove.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think I have one in here. I usually carry a set back in here, but you have me back on sometime, I'll show them. They're pretty interesting, yeah. And
that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have any photographs, you could forward them to me, and I could put them in with the post for this show when it airs.
That I can do, absolutely.
Going back to the nests again, you talked about a possible 5-year pattern between the making of them.
Yeah, and like I said, that's just because we don't think once they make these nests and they vacate that area, we do think they traverse this area, but they're not hunkering down making nests year round. It's a vast area, but they are traversing this area, in our opinion, based mainly on the audio and the track finds and some of the other things we look for, huckleberry breaks that defy known animal behavior, bear, elk, deer. But I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
I don't think I actually got to the question. As far as there being what seems to be maybe like a 5-year pattern or in that neighborhood of these things. And then huckleberry, within the First Nations use, is known to be medicinal and used during childbirth. So is there a possibility that these nest sites is it possible that they breed every 5 years?
Yeah.
And maybe these are nurseries?
That is, if Sasquatch is making these nests like we believe they are, if they're, I look at orangutans as a good model of a non-human primate, right? But a great ape. They give birth every, 6 to 8 years, every 4 to 8 years, depending who you ask, but roughly every 6 to 8 years. But I think what we got going on with Sasquatch is I don't think they're giving birth every year like humans. I don't think they need to. I think that's why they're small in number. So if they're giving birth every 4 years, 5 years, whatever, then they're making these nests periodically. Maybe it is specifically for childbirth, an area where they can hunker down. They have a seasonal salmon creek like in this area where they can, this time of year, that time of year, like right now, lots of salmon. I mean, just loads of salmon. You can walk across them. And then you do still have remnants, even though we do have a little bit of snow and frost. There are still remnants of huckleberry, salal Oregon grape, there's still berries available, wild strawberry. And then you got all the ungulates and you got all the everything else, mushrooms and stuff. So you have a lot of food sources in this area. And I think that it makes sense that we're not finding these nests all the time, and neither are anybody else. They're being found every once in a while. Now, if you look at the Patterson Gimlin film, I mean, that was a female Sasquatch.
Undoubtedly.
Did she give birth or was about to give birth? If that nest was anything to do with her in 1967, but there was a nest found there, and it was found, obviously, I don't know when the nest was made, but obviously she was filmed in October. With the medicinal stuff, so this is, these nests are made out of evergreen huckleberry. And one of the things I noticed in the nesting area itself was some of the nests had large piles of huckleberry leaves next to them. And I thought that was amazing. There's no teeth marks, no claw marks. They were picked off of these mounds.
With fingers.
With fingers, absolutely, and piled up. So at the time I thought, well, maybe they're eating them, maybe they're using for bedding material. And the question arose from a fellow researcher. He goes by the name Squatchermetrics. He's a professional data analysis by trade, really smart guy. And he goes, are there any medicinal purposes with the huckleberry? And I said, you know what? I should have looked into that a long time ago. So we looked into it, and lo and behold, doctors used to give women after childbirth a concoction of sugar and huckleberry leaf to regain their strength after childbirth. And so that's really what got my head, the wheels spinning here, that maybe those were being, consumed because of maybe a Sasquatch gave birth and it was regaining its strength. I mean, people are smart. Animals they know what to eat. Bears know what to eat when their stomach's upset. Dogs, cats do. People do. I'm sure Sasquatch is an expert at it, knowing their environment and what to eat. So maybe, just maybe, this is a childbirthing or a nursery scenario, and the huckleberry plays a huge role in these specific nests. Nests that are found, like Robert Alley's book, the Raincoat Sasquatch. There's a great picture of a nest in there that's very similar, but made out of completely different material. Everything else is the same MO, kind of general location. But in this area, I think that the huckleberry obviously plays a huge role, not just because it's the main plant in this area. We have salal and rhododendron and everything else, but the huckleberry, why else would you pluck it? And to me, you're going to be consuming it. I didn't see evidence of it being spread out in the middle of these nests. There was just nice uniform huckleberry soft boughs in the middle. These are on the outside, and something took time to make piles of huckleberry leaves. So I don't know.
Interesting. Scat, hair DNA. Have you guys collected and have you tested? And I guess the addition to that question is, the DNA project that Melba Ketchum did years back. A lot of people say it was poorly done. That's why the results. A lot of people say that she was stonewalled. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Kreider out of New Mexico.
Yeah.
He has had his hand in a DNA collection. In fact, if I remember right, there was a study that was going to be done, and they were waiting on Kreider's group to provide a very recent sample, which they managed to get. And at the point that they remitted that into the study, they were told that his sample was never tested and that it was sent off to some other group. So it was not included in the study that it was collected for. There just always seems to be some conspiracy behind the collection of DNA on evidence. And I was wondering, have you guys run into that, or does this seem to be kind of part of the pop culture of?
Well, there's quite a few things I want to talk about here. So let me start out with this before I forget. So Darby Orcutt is actually running a DNA study. He's running out of North Carolina, and we're sending him samples. He's getting a lot of samples. So, and he's got actual academic individuals in a lab that are going to be betting hair and other samples. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I know Cliff Berkman has a huge hand in that as well. I'm really looking forward to the future. Because they're getting a lot of good samples, not just from us. So that's future. In the past, we collected soil samples with Dr. Meldrum, and we documented and videoed and went through all the process of collecting these samples for environmental DNA, eDNA study. It's a very sore subject for me because, put it this way, I will never send samples to anybody that's involved with Sasquatch. I need to send my samples or our samples to non individuals that are not into Sasquatch. Right. And there's multiple labs, not just in the United States. You can look at ones in the UK, Canada, and there's some really good ones in Australia that do great eDNA work. As far as I had an individual we sent samples to that I'm not happy with whatsoever because we never got any paperwork back. They were just like, oh yeah, the usual suspects. And they named one specific animal that's not even in this area. So I knew they never looked at these samples. There's one animal they named that's not even in this area whatsoever.
They charged you though, didn't they?
No, they never got paid. No, they were supposed to. And that's a whole nother conversation. But we never got anything physical back, which is after 6 months calling, the guy picks up the phone and goes, oh yeah, usual suspects. And he said, oh, yeah, we found, human. I said, well, okay, what percentage? Oh, well, it was corroded, 100%. It was just junk. And I spent all the time, and many of us spent a lot of time collecting this stuff. At that time, I don't know if we sent them any hair samples, but 2017, they wanted hair with a follicle on it. Now, I guess you don't even need a follicle. They can do DNA work on hair now without a follicle, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. Visually looking at the hair speaks for itself. It doesn't match anything in this area. It lacks a medulla. For your audience, if you think of a pencil, mm-hmm. that medulla would be like the lead. It lacks that lead. It lacks that medulla.
Right.
And under a microscope, it's got red pigmentation to it. A lot of sightings talk about cinnamon-colored Sasquatch. There's a lot of them up here in the Pacific Northwest of cinnamon-colored or reddish-colored Sasquatch. So it's primate hair, visually looking at it. And so we have that going for us. But in the future, samples we send off will be going to like the University of in North Carolina there that Darby's running. It's accredited. And then I never give all my samples away. I want other options. I want second opinions. But it costs money, right? Everything costs money.
Right.
So real quick on the Melba thing, the Olympic Project worked heavily with Melba on, and it's another sore subject, to be honest. That could be a whole other show. I'm not going to state my opinion. It doesn't matter anymore. And it didn't go anywhere. And people will die on both sides of that hill.
Right.
I mean, literally.
They have.
Oh, they have. So, but we had a lot of hand in that. And I'll right up front, I'll be honest, there was a lot of botched stuff that happened from a lot of different people. I'm not going to pin on one, but it got botched. Mm-hmm. And I know way too much about it. Stuff that's not even public that would blow people's minds. So it's just
is that stuff you could talk about at a later date?
Possibly. Some of it's going to be. I know Eli with Small Town Monsters is working on a production, and there's going to be some stuff shared there from some of the key players that's going to be coming out down the road. It's going to be pretty fascinating. But yeah, possibly. And then some of it I just can't talk about, unfortunately. It's
yeah.
And honestly, it's stuff that I just know a couple of key players that have relayed some stuff onto me that I wasn't aware of. And so once I found that out, it really shaped my opinion a certain direction, so to speak. And so, but like that's in the past. I mean, that's done. Nothing, people can say, oh, she proved it, she didn't prove what, it doesn't matter. I mean, right now we're still at square one.
Yep.
But the future is looking good with other individuals coming forth and starting things where we can send samples to free, because a lot of this stuff is very expensive when you're doing environmental DNA work. It has come down in price. You can find certain places that'll look at stuff. But the future is, things are dropping in price.
Except our groceries.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started. Yeah, no kidding. So,
Sorry.
I have a better chance of getting some eDNA done than finding eggs. So,
isn't it terrible? Good Lord.
It's brutal. If I had time, I'd get some chickens. I used to have them, but I don't have that kind of time.
Shane, I don't want to take your whole night. We could continue to talk about this stuff for another 2 hours, I'm afraid. But I do want you to let people know about your new YouTube series that you have, and everything else that you have going on, where people can get a hold of you, how they can find out more about the Olympic project, all of it. So lay it on them.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. So I for about 10, 12 years, a lot of people reached out to me, hey, you should start a YouTube channel, keep us up to date. And I just never had the time nor felt compelled to do it. I'm not honestly, I'm a big TV person. I don't really care for having my mug on TV and stuff. But, getting older, and there's not a whole lot of ways to share, not just what I'm doing, but what the Olympic Project's doing. So I decided to create a channel called Sasquatch in the Mist. And I kind of named that after, gorillas in the mist, just kind of that mystery, discovery. And so Sasquatch in the Mist, I'm going to be pumping out some videos here shortly. It's only got the intro video up right now, but it's just a way for people to keep up with the Sasquatch research that I'm doing, the Olympic Project's doing, some of our thoughts, some of our ideas, showcasing some of the areas we traverse, showcasing a lot of the people that I work with. That'll be a big part of this, and just taking people along for an adventure, taking people along for how we conduct our research, and kind of just giving people a way to kind of see what we're doing. We've done stuff with, like Small Town Monsters and other media outlets, but, I don't have a lot of time for that. And quite honestly, I don't want to be that person that's faces on the TV all the time. It takes up a lot of time. And I love the stuff that Small Town Monsters have done.
Oh, they do a great job.
Fantastic job. And we literally have turned down almost every network and big Bigfoot shows that want to come out into our areas and do this and that. And I turn them down because a lot of that's just entertainment. I mean, everything's entertainment to a point, but right. I'm not into being disingenuous or real Sasquatch research is pretty boring. It doesn't make for good TV. Right. It's more time getting nothing than something, and so it doesn't make good TV.
You mean you're not coming up on something every 15 minutes that is earth shattering and makes you go, "Whoa, what was that?"
Not at all. Not at all. I wish I would make this hobby a lot easier, but no. Unfortunately, it's far and few between. But when you do, it's gold, and you get really excited, right? So I want to take people in and just kind of showcase how we conduct research and what I consider to be research, boots on the ground, and then interact with people and stuff. So that I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think people are gonna enjoy it, and said a lot of people have questions, and you can check us out on our website olympproject.com, which we update periodically. But this YouTube channel, I wanted to just take people along, like I'm strapping my backpack on and they're jumping on my back and take them with me, and talk about a lot of the ideas I have and a lot of the ideas the Olympic Project has as members, and see if something resonates with people. Something maybe they'll, like I said, have a piece of the puzzle by something I share or talk about, and like, oh, that happened to me. Or maybe someone will come up and go, hey, I found this, and they look very similar. That would be amazing. So it's going to be multifaceted. The main focus is Sasquatch, but I'm going to talk about a little bit of everything. I'm a big time hunter. I want to include that. I love the fish.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you think is there a possibility that if there is the weekend warrior, the enthusiast with desire but not much else, will they be able to watch these and kind of tear a page out of your guys' book as far as, hey, I should be doing this when I'm going out. I should be collecting data. I should be taking pictures. I should be recording, in a journal or whatever, what I'm finding. Are they going to be able to pull some tactics out of your bag and use them themselves?
I sure hope so. I mean, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, that's something I hope to be able to provide, and that it will encourage people to maybe either adopt certain methods or or take something and maybe adapt it their way.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fantastic. And I definitely am going to provide that stuff as much as one can, and you could take it or leave it, or, I'm still, I'm learning something all the time. I'm not an expert, by no means an expert, but I do have a lot of experience, and so do a lot of the other individuals in the Olympic Project. And I think they have a lot to share. They have a great, a wonderful voice for Sasquatch, and a lot of experience, years of experience, and some of their methods are pretty phenomenal. And so it's going to be, yeah, definitely. I hope someone can rip a page out of that book and do something with it and study it. And, YouTube, it'll be there. You can go back and watch it later, stop it, record it. So it's just and it's free, so I'm never been one to, I'm not a money guy. I hate charging people anything, I usually end up giving people stuff.
I got one more question for you before I let you go. You said these nests always tend to be on the western face.
Tend to be, yeah.
Is that with the sun rising in the east and being at their backs? If the nests are facing west, does that put them in the shadows for the majority of the time that the sun is in the sky to help keep them from being seen?
Yeah, I mean, typically in this area, the canopy's pretty thick, so you wouldn't be able to, we used to try to fly a drone in there. It's near impossible. You can, some of these new drones we can, but this canopy's pretty thick, but it is pretty much in the shade, in the shadow most of the day, until it gets into the western side, into above the seasonal salmon creek where it's peering through. You get that late warmth, which I think might be a key role, because these are on fingers, right? And you have this really steep slope down to the seasonal salmon creek, really steep, real quick escape routes. But that sun will peek through there and just warm that area up right before nightfall. So I think it's obviously, and that seems to be in this, at least this area, consistent with every nest we found on a western facing slope. Is it on purpose? I don't know. I tend to think it is. I don't think these nests are, whatever's making these nests are very intelligent, put it that way. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff. Shane, you're welcome back here anytime, my friend. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time, and just thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I really enjoyed the conversation, and so I will definitely love to come back sometime. It's been fun.
Fantastic. Sounds like we have a lot more to talk about.
Always do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good night.